Hey everybody, welcome to our first CUGC webinar. It's not really a regular webinar, but our first webinar-like event of 2021. It's our first ever Geek Speak live panel discussion, and I'm very excited about this. This is a new series that we're going to offer this year. We're going to be picking lots of different topics and have panels of experts from the CTPs and the CTAs, and we're going to have it live, and you'll be able to ask questions. You'll be able to raise your hand just like you're going to do today. Be lots of different topics that we'll talk about. So today is our first one. We'll be talking about working from home. We're all about a year into this remote work challenge, or maybe you're enjoying it. I don't know. But there's a lot to unpack in that, and I know things are changing for everyone. So we definitely welcome all your questions today. But before we dive into all that, I just have a couple of housekeeping items for you. First of all, just want to make you aware of the upcoming CUGC events that we have. You can see our local groups are getting back into the swing. We've got a lot of meetings coming up in February, and our first two Excel events of 2021 are already scheduled, and you can register. Great Lakes in Canada, we're very excited about those. Those are mostly a full day event. They're free. We have lots of great technical sessions, good speakers, fun keynote sessions, lots of great stuff. So definitely check those out. There's a link in the chat to our events calendar, so you can get to everything through that. Also next week, no, the week after next, we have our Women in Tech group is having a live panel discussion on advancing your career through certifications. And this isn't just for women in tech, it's for anyone who's interested in certification. So I hope you'll check that out as well. All right, so we are recording today's presentation. So if you have to drop off or you want to revisit something, you'll get a link to the recording tomorrow. It's going to come to you from GoToWebinar, so be on the lookout for that. Like I said, I want this to be an interactive discussion, so please submit your questions at any time. You can put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. But if you raise your hand, I think it's over here in your GoToWebinar panel, you can click on the little hand icon and let us know you want to ask a question. We can unmute you and give you a short amount of time to ask your question, and then we'll let the panel discuss. So please do that today. All right, so who do we have? We have some really awesome panelists for you. We have Esther Barthel, Steve Greenberg, Mike Nelson, Chris Rogers. These guys know a lot about working from home and have lots of great stories to tell, lots of great tips, lots of great stuff to talk about that I know is going to be helpful. And also, keeping everybody in line and keeping us on track is Shane Kleinert, and he knows a thing or two about working at home also. So,
oh man, you sure you made the right choice picking me to keep everyone in line?
Nah.
Excited to be here. Yeah, thank you.
So with that, I'm going to turn things over to our panelists. Shane, I know we talked about having everyone kind of talk about their own situations for a little bit and go through everything that they've been doing over the past year, and just, I don't know, let's just get going. And you guys start asking questions, raising your hands, and we'll get to your questions as much as we can in the next hour.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, I think for everyone on the call here, I mean, everyone's world has just been completely, both personally and professionally, right, has been completely flipped upside down. So there's a lot of experience on this call. I think we did the math. It's like 80 to 100 years of remote work experience on the call here. So, but we'll go ahead and start with the youngest one in the room, Steve, and maybe you could talk to some of your wisdom of remote working from home, and also the journey over the last year. I think would be cool, and maybe a little bit about your setup. You probably got the coolest setup in the room there with your disco ball. So.
Yeah, the disco ball actually fell off. Believe it or not, fell off the ceiling. Well, I don't have it running, but I do have it running for other meetings. We'll come back to some of this, but I've been involved in remote work really, really long time. So the first time I worked at home using Citrix, get this, was 1993 over a modem. Now, the modem experience, wasn't great, but that was the prototype. And since 1997, when I've been doing consulting, that's what I've been focused on. In addition to, enterprise computing on premise, a lot of the projects have been work at home. And myself, I've been working at home since really the late 90s, like 97, 2000. Now, there's still a big change because a lot of that time I'm at customer sites or I'm out doing things, or traveling, going to conferences, and that's all gone. So I'm home, I'm at home all the time, like most of us. So I also have an unusual circumstance we can talk about too as we unpack this, in that everybody got this forced on them in a short period of time, like maybe the March, April timeframe. But we've already been at home, both myself and my wife, and we have kids. And previously we had homeschooled them. So we actually had all the experiences that people were forced on suddenly over time. And that was an interesting contrast. I also want to give a shout out to this community for showing up, for being part of this, but also for what I called the hold my beer aspect, which is when the pandemic hit, most of the business and IT world was shocked with, oh my God, we can't come to the office. And the Citrix community, this is an IGL glass, not a beer, but was able to say, hold my beer, because we already do this. So shout out to all of us. There's still challenges, but this is a great community that's brought tremendous value to people and the business and the economy and society. So thank you. And who's younger than me? Everybody? Is that what you're saying, Shane?
Pretty much everyone in the room. And for the record, when you were in 1993, when you started, I was 8 years old. So
8 years old? Okay.
Hey, I'd at least graduated college, so.
Yeah. Young. So yeah, I guess we'll jump up. Let's do Chris next. I think Chris, you had and Steve, you had some great comments too about which I think is interesting when you mentioned we're all kind of forced into this. So and also us specifically, being implementers and integrators. So we've been pitching this for a long time and seeing a lot of these customers. It'll be interesting to hear all your perspectives as well. A lot of customers we preach, for the last 10, 15 years about remote work and centralizing computing and all the benefits, and they were still doing that traditional model. And now everyone came I'm curious of everyone's experience, but the rush in the beginning of the pandemic was absolutely insane. Right, just how many people had to come remote and ordering hardware and even physical laptops. There were shortages for all this different stuff. So yeah, I guess Chris we'll jump up with you next and hear a little bit about yourself and experience. Yeah.
Well, let's see. Those of you know me as a Citrix Jedi. I'm going to stay the Citrix Jedi, even those of you that know that I'm not necessarily a Citrix consultant anymore. I'm a Control Up SE now. So, it's interesting how, as Mark Templeton said at one point, how life connects the dots for you. So, yeah, there's that. But I'm same four walls every single day. Yeah, so I have lots of things, some of which you can see, some of which you can't see around me that enable me to work from home and give me a good experience. I have 3 monitors, soon to be 5, and it, as far as productivity, as far as screen real estate goes, as far as multitasking and doing all kinds of different things, that's great. I was ready. Yeah, sure, let's work from home. That's awesome. A year in, oh my God. It is, I describe it like the passage of time, and it's really weird because every single day is the same. Same for walls, same desk, same everything is the same. It's Groundhog Day over and over again. But so I can't honestly look at the last year and went, wow, that went fast. But then I look, and I'm very keenly cognizant of day to day to day. Every day when I go to bed, it's like, wow, another day just went by. And then another and another and another. It's like, how many, is this what it's like to be in prison? Just every single day. So yeah, work from home is great, but at some point there does need to be a little bit of variety. I miss business lunches. It sounds petty, but I miss business lunches.
I know it's funny you mention that, and we were talking about this the other day. I went a complete year without seeing anybody, and actually had to go on site, forced on site for it. Well, not forced. It was basically, they asked like, do you want to go? And pretty much told me my job was on the line. I'm just kidding. But they basically said, it was a customer kind of case study type thing. And we had to go and see this customer we haven't seen in a year. We worked remote, and I was dreading it the whole way, like hour and a half in traffic to Miami. But once we got on site, elevator door opened and I saw the customer, I wanted to like jump into his arms, right? And just that lunch, that kind of table chat and hanging out, it's definitely missed. So, but
Yeah, those that know me know I'm not a very physical person. I'm not much in the way of hugs, and I kind of cringe at even shaking a hand. But whew, after this, yeah, those conventions are just going to be like back in the '60s kind of thing.
COVID is making a hugger out of Chris. Woohoo!
That's jot that down. We'll definitely save that for the record.
I would suggest too that this has been a psychological change for a lot of folks, right? Because we've been doing this for years. It's not a big deal. I mean, I used to go out and just to get out of the house and stuff like that, take a drive, go meet some friends like Chris, you said, for lunch, do things like that. And be able to go to customer sites and talk to customers and things like that. So, but I mean, I've seen folks that have approached me and asked me about, their first thing, and people I work with, they're like, how could you do this for so long? It's driving me nuts. I mean, it's something they just can't relate to because they're so used to going into the office, so used to going in, and sitting at a desk, and being able to interact with people on a constant basis, face to face, and, not 6 feet apart, so much and everything else. But it's something that I think that, folks they have to, it's almost like a new norm, I believe. And I mean, you have some really big players in the tech fields that are saying, hey, if you want to work from home, we're open to that now. And, my company that I work for is actually saying, hey, we're not paying a lot, so much in real estate anymore. And it's really kind of convenient. If you want to work from home, we're cool with that. So to me, it's opened up doors for people to do that. But again, my wife she's going nuts. She has to go back in the office. She has to be able to interact with people. So for some people, it's really a great thing. Some people are just really having a hard time with it. And to them, I say that, you really have to find your middle ground. You really have to try and figure out, if this is something, I mean, you can go rent an office. You can go to, a WeWork. I don't even know if they have WeWorks anymore, but you can go and if you need to get away, you can do that. I mean, I have a friend of mine that actually goes and rented space in a self-storage facility, and just goes there to work because he doesn't want to work at home. He's got all of his kids, he's got his, everything else, and he wants to get out. So he actually rented a little, place to work. And speaking of that, I have a former supervisor of mine when I was working on a project, actually put up a very small, living in California, very small 2-bedroom kind of condo or townhouse, whatever they call it out there. And he actually set up a tent because he had no isolation, and that was just something he had to do, to help with his mental adapting to this, because it really is taking a toll on quite a few people, I think, and I can see it, even getting, meetinged out, virtual meetinged out, Zoomed out, however you want to call it. It's taken a toll.
Yeah, and that's a great point. You've made a lot of great points there. So, I mean, when you talk about being zoomed out, right, in the beginning of the call, right, remember the beginning of the pandemic, right, it was cameras on, right? It was used to just everyone would dial into the Zoom and you'd be on audio only, and you're walking around doing whatever in your shorts or underwear, it didn't matter. But now it's like Zoom on. So now now everyone stand up. Let's see what everyone's wearing. Yeah, I'm just kidding. But yeah,
wear pants. Wear pants.
Yeah.
Wear pants.
I haven't worn pants in months. I'm not going to stand up.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and to your point. Yeah, to your point, I'd be curious, and Esther, what you saw. But I mean, it started with like Zoom every day, right, for the first 3 or 4 months, and then slowly the Zoom started, still Zooms, but the cameras started shutting off, is what I saw. And then you'd have 1 or 2 people keep it on, and that kind of forced everyone to have it on. I personally, enjoyed the camera on. But I'm curious what your thoughts are, Esther, and kind of your experience over the last year. I think you had mentioned this, the work from home thing has been newer for you, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Well, basically, I think I had a lot of frustrations building all the remote desktop solutions or the virtual desktop solutions, but always had to be in the office because customers wanted to see you work for them because they pay a lot of money to have you build their remote solutions. So for me, the start of the whole working from home was like, hallelujah, I finally get to work with the products that I've been building for all these years. And it even felt great to just be in my own little bubble. Well, I have to admit, the first week I had to share that bubble with my partner, who also had her office space right next to me in the same room. But she kind of made a big point after 1 week to move out because she felt that that would contribute to a longer lasting relationship. Because apparently I'm not the best person to have in the same room because I shout to the screen whenever my scripts are not working. Or
I'm in the shouters club too. Loud talkers club here.
Yes, yes. So, well, she moved upstairs to her own little workspace. So that definitely worked for us. And I think the good thing is that we don't have to consider children or pets that might disrupt our work days. So now it's more like I'm downstairs, she's upstairs, and by the time it's dinner, we meet up again and we have something to talk about. So that's a good thing for us. But from a working perspective, I did notice that for us, and maybe it's a Dutch thing, it felt that some people felt that Zoom came too close into sharing their personal life with their colleagues, their work colleagues. So we saw kind of statements where some persons did not deliberately turn on cameras, where you had like the group, I think there were more expressive and more social focused that would immediately turn on the camera, bring in the pets, show their home situation, being totally happy that they had someone to talk to and share and show how well they were living. But there also were a couple of.
That's a really interesting point because there's a whole new social cultural element to all this.
100%.
And Shane, there's a question from Larry. Can I go ahead and bring that up now? Is that a good time?
To
in
go
the
ahead,
audience
sorry,
who said,
Yep. Oh yeah, definitely.
There's that delay.
Yep.
Yes, what allows you to stay focused from the homeschoolers, spouses, and Amazon package deliveries? And I'll start because I have a unique situation having done this for a long time. I started years and years ago in the same situation everyone finds themselves now, crammed in a bedroom right near the house and all the activity. And over the years, I actually had to build an office. We did an addition, which was like a separate office that became absolutely necessary. So the first thing was having a physical separation. Now I know not everybody can do that, and that's one of the challenges. So I'll ask the others who maybe don't have that, or what your feelings are and how to stay focused with location. But for me, as regardless of where you are, you have to just tune it out. You have to say, I'm going for 45 minutes, I'm going to write this document, or I'm going to be on this meeting, or even like I really don't do this anymore because everybody knows it, but I might have to lock my office door so no one just walks in and starts talking, and I'm in the middle of the Zoom. But it's about really like focus. But Mike and I have talked about this a lot because we're long-termers. You also have to work your personal life in. You can't be rigid. You're going to distress your family if you won't talk to them or throw a load of laundry in or something. You got to find a new tempo that doesn't exclude that, but allows you to focus. So let me throw it out to you guys and see what you have to say.
Well, and I would just add to that, Steve, we talked about that before, like you said, and some of it had to do with, having the entire family adjust, like you mentioned, right? Not only having, maybe kids that are required to stay at home, that are doing virtual school, or they're home for homeschool, or they're actually physically going to school, and what kind of implications that could be. But then also your spouse, your significant other. They very well can, like my situation, it's a little difficult to adapt. But it really comes back to, like you said, opening up the communication and being able to talk to them. But maybe it's more difficult for folks, because I actually have a niece that has to sit at a dining room table with her father and her brother, who's also in school. They all sit at the dining room table and do their work and do their schoolwork. So you talk about focusing on something. Sometimes that's just, when you're a couple feet away from someone, it's really difficult to do that. And I get that. It's something that you just, maybe it's time you just, you took it to another room and you try to separate yourself. And I got to say, from a comment before, when I was working from home and people were like, why are you doing this? Many years ago, it was, I kept on saying my best friend was the UPS driver and the FedEx driver. So we used to, yeah, we were on a first name basis, and they would come in and would chit chat and have a beer with me, and that was the fun part of it. So.
Yeah, Jose accused me of flirting too much with the delivery persons as well. But those were like the social highlights of the day. So yeah. And I had this. Yeah, I was.
If I could just add, but Larry, who asked the question, added the comment that his son started the new job after college and has never seen any of his coworkers in person.
Yeah, very true.
That's great. That's
true.
like the new normal.
I started a new position back in January or February of 2020. I visited the company obviously in February, but then lockdown happened shortly after that. So I have not met anyone except for 2 people that I work with. So it's like, there was no employee onboarding, where you get to meet everybody, and SKO, there's virtual SKO, and you don't get to do things like that. So even customers, you get new customers, Steve or Chris, you get even Shane, from your perspective, and Esther, you get new customers, but you've actually physically never met them. So to me, that's a little weird.
Yeah, one of the things I think is interesting, going back to what Esther was saying about, kind of bringing your pets into the room and kind of sort of merging your kind of personal space with kind of, with your work life, is those relationships. Like when you're on site and you're having those conversations in the lunchroom or whatever, you're starting to blend some of that space, but actually seeing the pet and bringing some of those things in your personal life into the mix, or someone walks by, your wife walks by in the background and kind of waves. To me, it really helps kind of build the relationships and kind of break down those barriers that maybe people had and didn't, either had it for a reason, or maybe just didn't really realize it was supposed to be like that, right?
Or you get the embarrassing moments that have been caught, that so many of us watch on YouTube and stuff, where, the husband's walking by and he just got out of the shower, and stuff like that. So that's all blending into the personal life,
Yeah, no, totally. And so we had a question come in, which I think is really good to kind of kick things off, and we start talking about kind of culture, about kind of work from home. And the question really was around, is pre-pandemic, maybe some of the reasons why a lot of folks didn't do work from home as kind of a full policy was kind of, this is the way it was always been done, right? And I'm curious of what kind of your thoughts are. I guess I don't know, Steve, if you want to take that first and kind of pass it around. What do you guys, because you have a unique perspective, obviously, selling the technology and talking to so many customers. So I'm curious.
Well, I think it's really, really true. I know I compliment everybody with the hold my beer, Citrix type guys, EUC experts are able to do this, have been doing it, and could respond to this quickly. But the reality is, even the many organizations I've worked with, very few of them were 100% EUC virtualized, right? They had important segments of their business, maybe call center, maybe they did have some work at home, but it was very selective. So even the people that adopted it didn't necessarily have a full openness to it, and probably still have that traditional attitude of, well, the office is the real work, the work at home is the exception. So this is a huge change, as Mike pointed out, and whoever else, that businesses see the economic benefit, and that tends to be the driver. But there does have to be an attitude change, because many people can be more productive at home. And we actually measured this over the years, because a lot of our work at home programs, like with enterprises, were really structured. Like we measured productivity, and we had training, and even site surveys where there's a process to go to somebody's house and verify that they have a proper desk and ergonomics and lighting and quiet space and all that. That was part of your qualification. You know, COVID took away qualifications. Are you breathing? Go home. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
So we got to find that balance, is what I'm saying, between the old feeling of looking at you working is real and work at home is an exception, but also making work at home professional and, you know, accommodate the needs. And one last comment is, like, there's different learners and different types of people. Esther really brought up a great point. Some people don't want you to like look into their personal space. Others are like, here's my cat. You can't get them to shut up about, you know, their pets, right? There's also different people. Some people must be in an office interacting. That drives them, that motivates them. Other people don't. I found I didn't realize that I'm both until I could only do one, because I've always had a great balance of, like, you know, on a near daily basis, I'm with people. I don't work at an office, but I'm at a customer site. I'm working on a project. Now I'm only at home, and I realize how much, you know, I miss that. Although I'm productive at home, like I can sit in my home office and get it done.
That's really one of the things that I wanted to mention was you talk about, you know, everybody. You remember at one point where you were working with people and they were like, man, I wish I could work from home. I want so badly to work from home. Give me the form to fill out. How come my company won't let me work from home? Now they're like, I don't want this work from home, you know?
There's a balance.
There's
this, you can't have 100% one way and 100% the other way. It's got to be a balance.
Well, and they experience it and they just come back and go, you know, man, this isn't so much for me, you know? Esther, go ahead.
I was going to say, I didn't even realize that you need to have a balance between being able to hyper focus and be in your bubble, and to be able to socially interact with coworkers. And I didn't even realize that till I think beginning of December last year, where I had the opportunity to go to a recording studio for some live presentations that we were going to do. And then I came back home all hyper because I had been talking to people all day, and I was making jokes and they were laughing and I could see them laughing. And I even had like a virtual drinks the next day and was still like in the social mode. And then on the Sunday, when I was back in like my personal bubble, I just had this overwhelming feeling of feeling so lonely in the world all of a sudden. So it is very important to find your own balance between what you need from a social interaction perspective and what you need to be able to focus on your work.
You guys remember one of the aspects that I wanted to bring up, and if we talk about this, Chris, I know you can talk about this extensively, is around something that happened when, you know, the restrictions started being put in place in different, not only in the US, but other countries, is folks weren't prepared to work from home, right? So there were companies scrambling to give them the virtual desktops, give them the hardware that they needed and everything else to work. But not only that, people were like, hey man, this guy's got this really great microphone, or this guy, you know, how does he put that background behind him? And how do you do this? And how do you do that? I know people that have said that they spent more money just trying to get, you know, their home office thing situated. I mean, people paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars for desks and you know, things like that. It's all, you know, it's something that I don't think a lot of people were prepared for. And then if you think about it, we even had like runs on Amazon. You couldn't even buy webcams. You couldn't even, you know, you know, things like that. And I mean, we can talk about equipment, you know, and what we think is best, because I know there's a question out there about, you know, hey, you know, what should I be using? But I think it's just kind of interesting that something like this happens, and then it's like a total shift, you know, in the paradigm of I've got to have everything at home now. My employer had everything for me at work, and I don't have access to that anymore.
So my first bit of advice there is don't spend a lot of money. You know, yes, I have a good microphone. Mike has a good microphone and stuff like that. And you look into things that, you know, good headset. You know, I just had a conversation yesterday with one of my coworkers, and we had a meeting at like 6 p.m. and he pulled his headset off and turned his speaker on. Please don't do that. Don't use your laptop microphone. Don't use speakers, please. get a headset, get a decent-ish microphone. There's plenty out there for not a lot of money, but you have to have something that's comfortable, because he took his headset off and he said, I'm just done for the day. I can't wear, and he had smaller, these are over the ear, these are nice and padded, Steel Series Arctis 7, if anyone is interested. Highly recommend. They're really, really good. And I can wear these all day and not even really think about it. Now, as far as spending money goes, Esther has a nice green screen. So do I. This is a green tablecloth
Nice.
and PVC pipe that I can put up behind me if I need, and it works great. The total amount of materials I have with the other PVC pipes for a stand from between Home Depot and Party City was probably 20 bucks. So you don't need to spend a lot of money to get yourself set up. You know,
If I might add there too, it's just being clever. Like if you look at Mike and Esther, Mike's done a great job of taking an angle where you see him clearly, and he's got a beautiful like sort of wood door behind him, and he's framed it nicely, and the mic is placed well. It's pointing at his mouth, but you see it, and that's kind of cool. He's taking advantage of his surroundings. Esther,
one bit of flair, Baby Yoda. So there you go.
Could like kind of put a background up. Look how nice it looks. She's really well lit, so she obviously took the time to light herself.
Yeah, I got some lighting as well. Yep.
Yeah. And what, like, you know, it could be a little ring light like this, which I have. If I take away, look how dark, you can't really see my face. So little things like lighting and the right webcam and mics, so forth, you know, really make a difference.
You got the glare off the dome though, Steve. We can see that.
Well, he buffed it out prior to the.
Your lighting's above me. My wife always makes fun of that. You're gonna find the
It should have been the halo. Yeah.
Just giving you stuff. Yeah.
No, but I think my first reaction was with the whole working from home, and especially as Chris pointed out, presenting from home, as I normally would do live events, was to invest heavily in technology, because I always trust technology to perform. And it helps me to not worry too much about how I come across. Can people actually see me? Is the camera correct? The same with the green screen. I do not have to worry about my partner walking into the room, because now at least she can walk into the room and just skip behind the screen and only annoy me and not the audience that I'm presenting to. So that helped me to stay focused on the content, or to stay focused on the discussions that we're having. So those are just little things. And I know I went all out from a spending budget, and I kept telling my partner, well, it's all corporate expenses. Don't worry about it. But truth is, I just was so happy to have a reason to geek out a little. So yeah, I went overboard.
Yeah, I just want to ask a quick question. Is that, I mean, is that about talking about how we as you know, a lot of us are doing consulting work, and a lot of us are working from home for a long time. But the folks that actually don't have the equipment to begin with, so I'm talking about like the task workers. I have a bunch of people that work for an insurance company, and they're claims folks. They have no clue. They have nothing at home. They basically had one computer that was a family computer that, you know, their kids are using for school, but they didn't even have a computer, let alone having the ability to have multiple monitors or anything like that. And it was really tough for them. And I know some companies stepped up and actually, you know, one company that I work with actually allowed people to come in and take their monitors off their desk and bring them home. I was like, you're never getting those monitors back. You realize that? And they're like, oh, we're okay with that, you know. But, you know, that type of situation is really scary for some people.
Yeah, we had similar responses. Taking home the desks, no, not the desks, but the chairs, taking home monitors, additional equipment. Yeah, that definitely was provided by some customers.
And I just,
that's also one of the bounce backs. One of the problems we're seeing is they did have to do kind of unnatural things. A common thing was I heard stories of, like Mike saying, that they would say to the employee, you're gonna need to work at home, so let me give you a prescribed time, come in the office and take your computer from your desk. That's one thing I heard. The other was rounding up laptops. Another was trying to secure laptops, and companies were competing for 500, 1,000, 2,000 laptops. also spinning up VPNs.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were sent home with some kind of laptop or VPN or Office PC, and that got them going. But now they're all sitting there. And of course, all of us thought this is going to end soon, right? You know, no one had any idea that it's going to be as long as it is because we didn't have any information about that. So we've got a lot of people sitting out there, maybe Mike, your call agents, who still have a family computer with a corporate monitor or some VPN, or how do you update that machine? How do you patch it? There's a lot of challenges right now. And that's where I think in 2021, the EUC community can really add even greater value. I think we helped get people home, but now we got to make home a permanent, sustainable way of doing things.
Not the year of VDI though. Not the year of VDI.
Yeah. Yeah. So to that point, Steve, a question came in just which is something that's been talked about a lot over the years, and you just mentioned it now when you mentioned VPN. So what is the panel's thoughts on kind of VDI versus VPN? Right. Traditionally, a lot of folks had VPN concentrators in their environment. That's what they spun up. That's what they knew. The folks that had EUC, they went and spun that up. Right. But what is your thoughts from a security perspective? Each of you, I guess we'll start with Chris. We'll give you a shot first. I know you're big in the security stuff.
Oh yeah. I had an interesting situation just the other day, where there's a program that I downloaded. I'm a big gamer. I play games, and there's a particular one that came out where that this game wanted more permission than I wanted to give it, and I had to really think very hard because this is the computer that I now do work on. This has different things on it and different access. Sure, I use VDI and things like that, and those things are separated, stuff like that, but I had to really pull back and go, do I want to put this program on my computer? And do I want to possibly open myself up to the difficulties that that would cause? So I ended up not. Because, and again, I have a couple of other friends of mine that said, well, why did you, no, that was fine. We're all doing it. It's like, no. So yeah, all of a sudden you have to worry about security. All of a sudden you have to worry about personal responsibility on things you never had to really worry about. If you have company equipment, how do you protect it? If you have non-company equipment, what work gets done in what way on what piece of equipment? I have way too many computers around me right now, and sure, it's easy just to do everything on this one, but I do generally have to think about what goes on where.
If I could add there too, the VPN question is particularly pertinent with EUC because given with Citrix's full stack technology, you absolutely can put somebody on a thin device or even their personal computer and get them in through an HDX proxy, right? However, this part of it's old thinking and part of it's corporate necessity. They have telephony, they have policies, they have things where if any agent, meaning like an endpoint, is connecting to our environment, it must be scanned in the following ways. There's a lot of impacts. It's easy for us to say, just use Citrix, man, you can get it done. But, there's whole security teams inside some of these enterprises that we work with that are like, hey, rules are rules. If you're outside, you must be on the VPN or you must have the Qualsys agent. And this is opening up a whole can of worms that wasn't even a thing before.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to say it's interesting because security was always conscious, and then it was like this was like their worst nightmare, right? Everyone just went home and rushed into a situation to get connected, and they were freaking out. And now you see, like if you look at like the ads that are coming out, and you look at what a lot of the monitoring, it's all about user experience, and it's about are they being productive or not? And that goes back to that kind of culture question, right? Should people be looking at managing, by tasks or by output, right? Is it still 9 to 5 or is there a blend between personal and work? And I think there's so many ways to take this conversation, right? In the short amount of time, we can go deeply technical, or we can kind of talk about, how to solve some of these challenges. I think that maybe are affecting us personally as folks that are kind of working from home, and maybe we should spend some time on that, and we can hit some of the technical questions as well. Like there's a question here around kind of voice and handling voice through Citrix, and I think we'll hit that in a few. But I was curious if you go. Well, go ahead, Mike. I think you're going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say. I mean, to me, I've dealt with both scenarios. So it really depends on the situation, right? It depends on the company and how, their infrastructure is set up, whether they use VPN or they use a VDI technology, whether it's public cloud-based, private cloud-based, what have you. It all depends. But I will say that when you take a look at this holistically, there are companies that have had to come up with new security postures, like you're talking about, Shane, right? But I've actually had to sign, new remote work agreements because they've had to add a bunch of verbiage and things like that around what Steve was talking about, around, security, and Chris, what you were talking about, how, what can you put on a home machine compared to your work machine and things like that. So it's really kind of realigned companies to think, hey, this is a real thing. This is something that we have to be prepared for legally, as well as, from an infrastructure standpoint. So I think that, to me, you have to take that all into, consideration. And for a person that works for a company that comes back and just says, hey, you have to work from home, but we can't give you anything. Well, that's not the best scenario. You have to really, really evaluate your options at that point, right? And I did have some people that, a county government, as a matter of fact, believe it or not, that came back and said, we can't get laptops right now. They didn't have a VDI solution. We can't get equipment to give you. So, basically you're going to be furloughed until we can find something. And, I did know people that got impacted by that.
Yep.
Yeah, I had so many conversations with customers around capacity around that March timeframe, where customers that years previous, and said I live in the DC area, snow days are a thing, hurricanes are a thing in Florida, whatever, and the conversation always was plan for your worst day. Plan for the snow day. Plan that one day when everyone's working from home and make sure you have the capacity. And no one wanted to spend the money. So now all of a sudden, here comes March, snow day.
Yeah.
6 month long, 9-month long snow day.
And I have to say, some of the schools were the hardest hit by that. I mean,
Yes,
they
absolutely.
didn't. I mean, you couldn't get Chromebooks because it was like all the kids needed Chromebooks, but a lot of the schools were not prepared for this. And I gotta say, I want to make this point, is people have to be careful, all right? Because number one, I saw a lot of people come out of the cracks, as it is, so-called security experts, so-called creating applications that would help you, when actually they are nothing. They're just people trying to make money. So you also have to be diligent in what you're implementing and what you're using. I will say that I was reading an article the other day online where two companies, very well-known companies, that created software that allow your employers to watch you, okay, while you're working, to time to record your time online and connect it to them. And believe it or not, their revenues have gone through the roof. In the past 6, 8, 10 months. It's really incredible.
Well, that is an innovative way to stick to the managed by presence and not managed by result philosophy. Yeah.
Hey, I want to just throw out there, Justin Miller's blowing up the question chat with some great comments. One is, you find out exactly how good your internet is in these circumstances.
Yes.
And his other comment that I love is, he just said the age of non-linear work days. And I wanted to pick up on that one, because there's lots of questions in here about managing time and the impact. It's just, you are now non-linear.
The days run together. The days, it's
not run together.
Yeah.
Is it like, even when this was newer for me, I might have to take a certain, I might have a certain assignment, like I have to architect or write. I might not be able to do that during the day with the kids screaming, So I might have to go, all right, I'm gonna take care of the kids at one point in the day, and then at 10 p.m. when everyone's asleep, I'm gonna sit down for 2-3 hours to write my architecture. And I kind of forgot this because it becomes so natural for me. But at one time I was really, really balancing that. Like, I was working at odd times so I could deal with, the children or the home emergency. So I like what way Justin said it, non-linear. You just got to reorganize your life.
You remember the pie chart from a couple of years ago, a couple synergies ago, when I think it might have been Christian Riley that had it up there, and he was talking about work-life balance. and they had the one pie chart. It was a day. It was a 24-hour day, and said, okay, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. work, and 5 p.m. on, and then something, and then sleep and thing. And the pie chart was divided. And then he had a second pie chart that then all of a sudden had the day, a little bit of work, a little bit of life, a little bit of personal, a doctor's appointment, and kids, and blah, 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 and then more work and stuff like that. And the point of the chart was all of a sudden your work starts to pervade your day more and more and more. Citrix only ever used that pie chart once because everyone complained about it, because the implications of it were awful. Guess where we are right now?
Yeah, right in that pie chart.
Yep.
If I can say something about that, I'm uniquely qualified to comment on that because I've been through the cycle for a very long time. There's a danger of work invade your life, but then there's another stage that most people aren't aware of where you figure that out. And that's where I am. And it's awesome because that flexibility allows me to take the kid to a doctor appointment. And my mindset allows me to work at night if I need to, but I'm not working at night like as a slave. I'm working at night because that was a really cool trade-off that I could do something for my kid and get this thing done. So the work-life balance can be fine. We have to be open to new things. And like Esther was saying, the spying software is a new managed by presence. That's really not the answer. I mean, there's a time for everything, but it's can you get the job done? And then what you should be caring about more is people not overworking. One of the big problems at work at home is people can't stop working, So that's really the balance. Non-linear workflow, but also don't overdo it. Make sure you spend time with your family.
We're used
do it right.
We're used to that. We're used to that as consultants, where you have this drive, and I've called it when advising other people, I've called it a drug, and it really is, because when you're a consultant, am I billable? How much am I billable? Could I be more billable? And it really kind of does just feed on itself, and you got to pull back from that and say, okay, you know what? I don't need to be billable 80 hours a week. If I'm billable 40, that's pretty good. But yeah, it's an easy trap to fall into. All of a sudden, you don't need to go anywhere. You don't have a commute. You have plenty of time to do stuff. Let's get stuff done.
Yeah, and it's not just consulting. It's also being interactive with the community. There have been so many, like a real sprawl of new meetups, virtual meetings. I think I can have like 2 meetings at the same time competing every night since March last year. So I had to really tone down my community presence, so to speak, because all of a sudden there were like user groups in every country and the world was my stage. So
no travel, don't have to go anywhere.
No travel, so I could go to the US meetups, all over the world. And that's when I realized that those hidden hours normally were a bit more in balance, and this last year that like totally exploded as well. So yeah, that takes away from the life balance for sure.
Yeah, and so talking about the work-life balance, we had a question come in that I think it's a good question because it kind of gets into like outside of work, right? What are some things that you all do to kind of outside of work for fun and to kind of just put your head in a different space and enjoy yourselves. And I know Steve, you do music, you got that awesome studio. You had a lot of questions about that. Maybe you just spend a minute kind of talking about some things you do outside of work to keep things in check and have that balance.
Yeah, purely for visual impact, I'm in my music studio because it looks cool. Isn't it? Yeah, it's not a green screen. But music is a big thing, and also I do like martial arts and exercise. And the pandemic has really allowed me to be serious and consistent. So I wake up every morning, I do my exercise. It makes a huge difference in my mental state, and that can be whatever outlet you have. I happen to do Tai Chi and swords and different martial arts, and then for me, the music is the break, and that's that work-life balance. Music nowadays is very tech-oriented. There's a lot of computers and IT technology, but I enjoy that. So that's my time away from the office, and then I come in, and what I do is I write and play music. I was a musician before an IT guy, so I also put these things out on video. It's called Live from Steve Studios. It's out on YouTube and Facebook, and it kind of keeps me going. I quit television years ago. So when I'm not working, I want to be doing things that are like fun and productive. And that's my way of doing it. And it's amazing because I can really focus and work when I know that when my day's done, I'm going to go have fun, get a break.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, no, that's pretty awesome, and that's something that I guess a lot of people, for you, I mean, I knew you for years. I didn't know you. I knew obviously martial arts because that one time in Bryform where we got, they told us we were going down the wrong path, like you said, and they were like, you're in the wrong neighborhood, and Steve just kind of like got into like martial arts mode, and I hid behind him. But I didn't know music until the pandemic and saw you playing in the studio. That was really cool to kind of see. I think you learned a lot about people's talents over this course of this time. So I guess Chris,
Yeah.
what's some stuff you do for fun? I think gaming was one of them, right?
Gaming. So gaming says I'm sitting right here looking at this screen doing basically exactly the same thing, but for different
That's very
reasons.
true.
Granted, it engages a different part of my brain, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
getting up and walking around every once in a while. But one of the things I do, and I don't think I've ever shown the community this, is I paint fantasy minis.
Oh wow,
So
look at
that's a dragon that I've done. And this is ask me the story about him sometime. This is Bob the neurotic pit lord. So but yeah, I mean, me being very left-brained, very logical, very analytical, that sort of thing disengages that part of my consciousness and engages the right brain, which is more difficult for me to use. So again, that requires a lot more focus and does give that left brain, that analytical, that architectural side of myself a break. So there you go.
That's cool. Yeah, so for me, it's been, something that I love to do, a couple of things. First thing is I've taken up a new hobby of barbecuing and smoking meat and things like that. So I've kind of jumped on that.
I got a smoker too. It's so good.
Yeah. So last year, it's actually 2 years ago, I bought one, and then now I'm just like, whenever I get the opportunity, I'll spend a lot of time with the barbecue and figuring out different ways to cook stuff and all that kind of fun. But I've really immersed myself in the last probably 8-10 months in learning different things, and that means being online and things like that, and just taking the focus off of the technology and opening up to other things. And one of the things I've been doing right now is I'm learning sign language. I've always wanted to learn sign language, right?
That's cool.
And yeah, so I'm taking the jump, and I'm actually going through an online course of learning sign language.
Awesome.
So I'm kind of expanding my horizons, if you were, beyond just technology. I mean, obviously technology is what I'm all nerdy about, but I'm trying to expand a little bit and learn different things.
Awesome. So for me, I did realize last year. I did realize last year that I needed to invest a bit more in my own personal health as well, because it's so easy to just sit behind the screen, do the work, then have a quick dinner, and then get back behind the screen because I'll find another way to nerd out and not be very actively moving around. So I decided that the spinning bike has functioned as a clothes rack for way too long. So I started doing my spinning exercises again and working on a better stamina. So that's one of the things that I'm now doing. And it also helps me to basically clear my mind at the end of a day. Because I did have some problems a couple of months ago falling asleep because my head was still spinning with all the solutions that I tried to come up with. So the spinning helps to just go full force in and just clear the mind and have a bit more quiet time before I go to bed. Reading, I picked up just reading novels again. To help me from not getting too much triggers like watching TV and scrolling through the internet before going to bed. And the other cool thing that I did is I joined my partner, my girlfriend, in her cleanup runs that she does. Every Sunday she goes around and she walks around the town and cleans up all the litter that people leave behind. And I even got creative to build my own little litter bin that on wheels. So I'm not getting too strained with carrying the big heavy bag with litter around anymore. And I just enjoy being out there and being having time together to talk about other things and just being out in the open, even though it's chilly these days, to just walk around and feel good about cleaning up just a little bit of this world.
No, that's awesome. It's great to give back, and it's great. It's really great to kind of see everyone's, like, you learning. So even you know, I've known all of you for a long, you know, for so many years, you know, through the program and everything, the CTP program, and just to learn more personal things about everybody, and it makes you, you know, wonder, right? Like, the more people I talk to, I see that they got, you know, more of a smile on their face, you know, when you're talking to them, because they're getting the ones that are, you know, able to be at home and work from home. Right? And I'm curious if you all are seeing this too, because they're getting to do a hobby, spend time with the family, and kind of still be able to work, but not have to go into work every day and deal with that hour and a half or 2 hour commute that they deal with. And you're just shifting, like you said, Esther, you know, sometimes people would disconnect on the way home. They'd have that hour to disconnect and kind of drain that mental space. But now you're always at home. Exercise, like Steve and you were doing in the morning, I think is great. So, I mean, do you all see this as kind of a fad or something that's going to stay? That was a question that came in.
I'll chime in right away. I think this is actually something that's going to stick. I think it's something that, you know, there are going to be companies, like I mentioned, you know, in the beginning of this, is they're saying, hey, this is going to be forever. You know, this is going to be something the company's just going to put as part of its culture, that it's going to happen. But I will say that I know more, maybe not so much global companies, but more localized companies, more local. They are probably going to, you know, go back to that, especially if, you know, from a task worker's perspective or from you know, obviously the essential. But I think that, you know, you're going to have a mix, but I really think that this is you're going to have a lot more companies that are opening up to it.
This also speaks to the life balance. Chris mentioned, like, the big thing that he's feeling, I could totally relate, is not having those lunch meetings, because you might be working at home and you get a break. Oh, go meet so-and-so. You got to meet a customer or a client or whatever. And Ruben Sprout suggested a few months ago that the office may become the fun place where you do the bulk of your work at home, but the office or the gathering is the break and the chance to interact and have the water cooler time and create ideas, but it's the exception. You know, you go do your work at home, and then maybe you have like a special event or a once a week or whatever it is. I think there's some merit to that. That might be a really good way to balance it all.
Kind of that ideal world that I'm hoping we see is to where we work from home. There is an office you can go to, but it's one of those open concept, shared desk kind of thing. When someone, here's some resources for you to use, you come in when you need to, when you have a meeting, stuff like that. And then we see many, many more team building events where the whole team gets together and goes mini golfing or something like that, where yes, you do get the interaction with your teammates, but in a more casual setting where sure, you can talk about work if you want, but everyone needs to get together and have that personal time. So I kind of hope that the world evolves in that way.
Well, we used to do that with one of the consulting companies that I worked for that didn't have an office space because all the consultants were at customers. So basically that is a similar situation where we used to have like monthly meetings in a hotel, in a conference room, to just catch up with each other and to have that social moment and bonding moment. So yeah, I guess that's definitely a future that I would sign up for.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's something that I think just like when we talk about everyone's moving to the cloud and then ends up moving more of a hybrid, I think we'll hopefully be in more of a hybrid space in this area as well. So I guess I know we're coming up on time, so I guess we want to ask. I know we have a few questions here as well, but I'm curious on what your thoughts are. I guess if anyone wants to kind of, you know, maybe one or two tips, you know, working from home, things that you've experienced that you feel would be beneficial. We talked about a lot of different stuff, but if there's one off the top of your head, like, hey, this is one thing I know is going to help that person at home, working from home right now, that maybe having some challenges, whether it's task management or work-life balance or technical, et cetera.
I'll go quick. I just have a quick one that I think addresses some of the comments. Is know when it's work time and when it's not. I think there's some of the comments I'm seeing are confusion. How do I manage time? One gentleman asked, he's down to 80%. Now he's got free time. What does he do? Just the simple statement of when is work on, when is off. If you had like a little red light, you know, like a record light or something, it's work time, focus. You know, don't get on Facebook, don't do these other things. This is work time. But then when it's not, know that it's not work time and give yourself that break. That's all I would say.
I would just say, I would just add the comment to that too, is take time to breathe. Because a lot of folks don't do that anymore. You know, everything runs together. Like Steve was saying, you could realistically, you could work 40, 50, 60 hours in a week and you wouldn't even know it. Take time to breathe.
Yep.
Just took a deep breath when you said that. I just when you said, you should do like those yoga podcasts. You know, you got a good voice for that. It's just kind of like the Calm app. Mike Nelson on the Calm app.
No.
That was good. I feel so relaxed.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I was gonna add to that is make sure that you find kindred spirits to stay social with. I know Steve organizes a wonderful EUC virtual drinks. Because we are social creatures and we need to have those interactions and to just have a laugh with each other or silly stories, or I know we had a cocktail drinks a themed party one of the meetings. So make sure that you find kindred spirits that do understand also the mental struggles of working from home, and make sure that you keep the conversations going. And find cool virtual drinks to join, not to get hammered. Let me be very clear about that. I'm not promoting
you don't have to drive
alcohol
anywhere.
as
Yeah,
a
you got four
solution.
walls. I think you're okay, right?
I know, but that's the easy solution. So I just want to make sure that you also consider your own mental health, and
Absolutely.
Just let us know if there's anything we can help you with. Just reach out, because we would be happy to point you in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. CUGC is obviously a great community. Just as Esther mentioned, Steve has the kind of the end user computing kind of happy hour, which is using kind of a new technology, right? As you guys are using kind of, I think it's called Group Room, which I didn't get to join that yet, but there was actually a question, and we'll circle back to you, Chris, as we're closing this out. But there's a question that I forgot to get to about how do you keep those water cooler conversations going? And do you guys feel that app that you use and it helps in that scenario and kind of creates?
Yeah, what we're referring to is Group Room, a new technology and company by Chris Matthew. By the way, this happy hour is Friday at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. That's 3 p.m. Pacific right now, and 5 p.m. Eastern. Everyone in the community is welcome. I don't know the best way to get you an invite, but I'm at Steve Greenberg on Twitter. So just, ping me on there, DM or whatever, tag me, and I'll get anybody an invite. And while I'm on that subject, I just want to add, I've had some struggles over the time. I've had some dark times where I was really, really depressed or scared. And I just want to say that is natural. We're having a fun conversation, but there's also times this gets really hard, and that's okay. And I just want to acknowledge that. And you can reach out to anybody here. Don't feel like you're alone. If you're like, man, I'm freaking out, I'm depressed or afraid, or these are tough times and things happen. So if you really do need any help, just reach out to the community. Everyone is here to help however we can.
100%.
Yep, have your network. Everyone's here to support everyone else.
Yep, no, I totally agree. Awesome. So yeah, I think I think that was a great conversation. I think we got to talk about a lot of insightful stuff. Hopefully, there's the one last thing that just kind of came in, and I think because we're talking a lot about a lot of challenges and how we're all dealing with them. Someone asked, Justin said, "Is everyone here 100% okay with working from home?" It sounds like a struggle for everyone here on the call. We're talking through it. I love working from home. And it is at times, but and I'm actually not at home. I'm in an office right now, one of those shared offices that we talked about. I'm in my own isolated room, but I do personally enjoy it. And I think everyone here also enjoys that flexibility. So, but yeah, so we're all here. We appreciate everyone joining. Stephanie, I guess if you want to, kind of close things out and.
Sure. I dropped a link in the chat for everyone. And I just have one little slide. There you go. Just a thank you. Thank you guys. This was a really great session. There were so many great comments and great questions from everybody. I'm really impressed with all the questions. And then we're going to keep this kind of thing going, like I mentioned at the top of the hour. So April 22nd is the next Geek Speak date. I don't have a topic yet. But if you fill out our survey, we do have some suggested topics that were passed around. So we'd love to get your feedback. Let us know what you want to talk about. These, I mean, they're technical topics. So definitely fill that out and tell us what you're thinking. But I just want to
Stephanie,
thank everyone. Huh?
If I could real quick, maybe one of these times, Steve or someone who, all of us that have been around for a while could give everyone that maybe doesn't know the background around what Geek Speak actually was and what it is. So maybe the next session we can kind of give a little history on that as well.
Yeah,
That would
definitely.
be nice.
And Stephanie, also wanted to add that's a fantastic idea, Mike, because there's an incredible story about the first Geek Speak.
Yeah,
it was worth telling. But I also wanted to add, Stephanie, like I saw some technical questions in the comments today, and we'd love to go there. But that's the perfect thing to send in ahead of time. We can do a whole session on second factor. It's hard to get into like deeper technical discussions in these formats because they take time. But one of them that's caught my attention was second factor and giving internal people like regular factor, out external stuff. These things, like, we'd love to address real technical stuff, but we need to know what it is you want to do, and then we'll go as deep as you want.
Yep, and
that
might
we'll
be a great
out.
topic. Yeah, no, 100%. It might be like, send 3 or 4 of those questions ahead of time, and we can maybe spend 5 or 10 minutes on each of those, and whether it's diagramming or kind of diving into it, I think that'd be really cool too.
All right. Well, thanks, you guys. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day, letting us in your homes because you're all at home, and sharing your spaces with us. And just
Thanks for putting this together, Stephanie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Stay happy, healthy, and safe, and enjoy. Bye.
All right, cool. Stay safe, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.